Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the most must-see podcast to someone anywhere in the world. I'm Freddie Court. This is Mark's Side of the Ring. And as you see, I'm not alone this week. Finally, I have somebody else to speak to. Ray Gambino, welcome to Mark's Side of the Ring. How are you, Ray?
I'm doing good, Fred. You finally got your tag team partner, so.
I finally got tag team. I said we go for the straps.
To partner unknown.
Yeah, that's right.
Unknown.
I tell you, coming on here every week, talking to myself, as much as I love to hear myself speak, I can get kind of tired of it. So it's good to have somebody else along for the ride today. And we got a lot to talk about because, as everybody knows, this Saturday is the 35th annual Royal Rumble. And as evidenced by your background, I see you're ready for the Royal Rumble. Classic old school right there.
Been ready since 92.
With a tear in my eye. That's what when I see that.
Tim, you're 100% right. Best Royal Rumble ever.
I just rewatched it like last week. It's 30 years ago, which is crazy. And it was phenomenal. I mean,
best one ever.
I have to agree. Between Flair winning it, becoming champion, but like the whole story with Bobby Heenan on commentary. And look who's in it.
Oh, yeah. All Hall of Famers.
It's insane. It's a who's who, you know? 92, I have to say, it was before my time of watching, but like I can go back and appreciate it and see how, especially if you grew up in that era, like watching that, that could be your favorite.
It was the best. The only thing that screwed it up was the WrestleMania main event.
Terrible. I to this day, it kills me. There's been rumors why and different stories, but why we didn't get Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair at WrestleMania. And I don't care what anybody says, whatever excuse is given or reason, it's not good enough for me.
There's enough money pays for anything. You could have paid one of those guys off with their egos to get that job done.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I've heard stories like they did matches on house shows leading up that just were not good.
I'll buy it.
It doesn't have to be good. Hogan and Rock technically wasn't really good as far as a wrestling match, but some people consider it the greatest WrestleMania match of all time.
Yeah, you know, and it was terrible.
What it was, it's Hogan and Rock.
It was a performance.
Exactly.
And then you had two of the best performers to ever do it together, so you're not really even paying attention to the wrestling as much.
But instead, we got the masterpiece that was Hulk Hogan and Psycho Sid going on last, so we had that at least.
Papa Shango
and Ultimate Warrior coming out in some bodysuit that people thought it wasn't even really him. That whole rumor started.
Fun fact, too, that was the first time anybody kicked out of the leg drop.
Really?
Yep.
I did not know that.
And it wasn't planned. It was because Sid knew that Papa Shango was late getting to the ring, so he had to improvise.
Wow.
See, that's why I'm here.
That's why. I learn something new every day. Just when you think you know, you have no idea, right? I did not know that. So I'm learning stuff here going into the Rumble. Here we are. Awesome. Yeah, 92 started off strong with the Royal Rumble. Didn't go that strong with WrestleMania. SummerSlam that year, though, was really good. You know, we had the Brett
Wembley.
and Wembley Stadium. Yeah, we had Brett and Bulldog and Savage and Warrior. So there was some good stuff on that. But like I said, we're here to talk about the Royal Rumble. So 92, your favorite. We're going to talk about like some of the old school, and then we'll go over to a little later in the show. We'll talk about this year's Rumble, get everybody all set for Saturday. But so we'll talk about favorite Rumble moments. But you said 92 is your favorite. It is up there, and I can see why people say it's the best. My favorite for me is 10 years later in 2002, and I just remember that Rumble fondly. I'm a big Triple H fan. He's not my favorite, like former member of Mark's Side of the Ring, Miguel, but he's right up there. But we had Mr. Perfect come back and Goldust and Big Boss Man and Val Venus, Godfather. All these guys came back. Star-studded also of that generation. Kurt Angle was in there, and Booker T and Rikishi, Kane, Taker. I mean, everybody, Austin. I just love the O2 Rumble just for whatever reason. And that's crazy that's 20 years ago. And I was thinking the other day, you know, wait a minute. If 92 was 30 years ago, that means the O2 20. Holy shit. Like, how is that possible? You know? So, yeah, O2, I have to say, is my favorite Rumble match itself. Triple H winning after the quadricep injury that he returned from. But what else besides 92? Do you have another Rumble match that you love?
The best, in my opinion, and it's probably everybody from my age group, was the Rumble before WrestleMania 6. That first time where Hogan and the Warrior were face to face. And what made that interesting was all the managers, for some reason that year, were around the ring.
Right. Yes.
And like everybody just stopped and couldn't take their eyes off of it, because growing up as a kid, you never thought those two would clash. And then from there, it just turned into probably the best WrestleMania main event in history that kind of like just catapulted people like our age into wrestling fandom. But like recently, my favorite was, I can tell you what my least favorite was when Triple H won the title, Miguel.
2016 when he came.
Yep. There's been a lot of weird ones, like weird winners. The one where Daniel Bryan should have won, that Batista wound up winning. They dropped the ball on that, but they did make up for it. So I can't really put that on the list. But other than the 90, 92 recent, the Stone Cold ones, the first two he won in 97, 98 were, that was the changing of a era. And then 2008 when Cena came back was probably the most shocked I was watching a Rumble.
That was amazing. I was there for that one in 2008. And somebody had said to me that earlier, maybe Cena will win it. And at the time, he had just only been out since October. It'd only been a few months, and he was supposed to be out like close to a year with the neck surgery that wasn't his neck, that was his pec or something. He was supposed to be out like quite a long time, so it would not make sense. I remember saying, "There's no way Cena's gonna win it. He's not even gonna be in it. It's like an impossibility." Like I totally just shot it down, and like stop talking, And then
the music hits.
His music, and I went nuts. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, that's probably one of which we'll get to like Rumble moments in a little bit, but that's probably like my favorite Rumble moment is that Cena return in 08, just because the shock of it and how loud Madison Square Garden got that night.
That's what I was going to ask. Is that the loudest you've ever physically been in a building for a reaction or a pop?
It's up there. It's hard to say. Like, I was at SummerSlam this year, and Brock and Becky got massive pops when they came out. But the thing with like big stadiums is, there's thousands and thousands of people, and the reactions are loud. But when you're in a smaller venue like that, like the Garden rather, as opposed to the sound is just so much more compact, and you hear, and especially at the Garden, because they have like that ceiling at the Garden.
Yeah,
it's great acoustics. I'd have to say, I've been to a lot of shows, and I have to say that's probably the loudest pop I've ever heard at a live show.
Wow,
it was insane. Going to 2016, you had mentioned with Triple H winning that one. I didn't think Triple H, because he wasn't even advertised to be in it.
No.
And I remember everybody thought Roman was going to win it, which would have been 2 years in a row for him. And everybody was outraged in 2015 when he won it, which, speaking of being at shows, I was also there for the 2015 Royal Rumble when Roman won it. And going from 08, the loudest ovation, to 2015, the loudest response of boos that I've ever heard. I mean, that place wanted to put Roman on a stake. I mean, they wanted to kill him. It was crazy. I will say, I understood Roman winning that year in 2015. I wasn't mad. I mean, I wasn't one of the Roman haters. I wasn't necessarily his, first member of his fan club like I am now. Let me give me a second to acknowledge him.
Yes.
Okay. I just had to take a pause to acknowledge Roman Reigns, our tribal chief. But I didn't in 2015, but I wasn't as mad as some of these people were. But it was so bad that even The Rock got booed. And The Rock hadn't been booed in years. You don't boo The Rock in 2015 unless you're associated with Roman Reigns. That was crazy. The Rock couldn't even save that. But they shouldn't have had the one mistake they made in that Rumble in 2015. Made me think of it because you talked about Bryan in 14 with Batista. Is Bryan had been out then after he won in Mania. He defended the title against Kane, whatever, and then he was out for a while with his neck. And he came back right before the Rumble in 15.
Yes.
And it was like a big return, like, wow, Bryan's coming. And everybody thought, all right, they're going to make right. He's going to win it this year. And then he didn't even last till the end. It wasn't even down to him and Roman or whatever. Yeah. He got eliminated like early on, like it was like a nothing, elimination. I was like, well, that just made no sense, And
then you're thinking in your head, all right, there's something else big must be happening. And then number 30 goes off, and it's Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
It's like,
and speaking of, he also got booed, and but Ray, I don't think Ray's ever been booed in his life except on that night.
Nope.
So Daniel Bryan, I blame Daniel Bryan for screwing up the Royal Rumble for a couple of years because he caused CM Punk to leave in 2014, and in 2015 he kiboshed the push of Roman Reigns, but not. And Daniel Bryan never ended up winning a Royal Rumble, even when he came back in 2018 miraculously. He'd been in a couple Rumbles since he had come back. Now, obviously, he's in AEW. He's had a hell of a career, no doubt about it, but he never won that Royal Rumble.
No. Now, out of all the recent ones that you can remember, I'm not going back to like Hacksaw.
Yeah.
Big John Studd, right?
Oh, yeah.
Who's your least favorite person that won the Rumble?
Or
one that like really upset you?
Recent? You said so. Well, it's not so recent now, but as time flies, as we were saying, it's a toss between Alberto Del Rio in 2011 because his push really never went anywhere. It was, everybody thought he was going to beat Edge at that Mania, and he didn't. And I also was not a fan of the 40-man Royal Rumble.
No, too many.
So between him and then Sheamus, and it's got nothing to do with Sheamus. I like Sheamus. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's underrated, but Chris Jericho should have won the Royal Rumble in 2012, not Sheamus.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Sheamus more because Sheamus didn't even have any momentum going into that Rumble. Like it was like it just happened out of nowhere. Like, oh, Sheamus. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Sheamus as far as like recent ones, like underwhelming.
What about most shocking? I'm interested because I think you might pick the same one.
Shocking. Well, I couldn't. I mean, you go back to 2018, maybe not as much, but the fact that they actually gave it to Shinsuke Nakamura is shocking. Was that what you were thinking? Yeah. No, I mean, again, he was hot at the time, and I think he could be hot now if they put the machine behind them. But the fact that they actually did go through with it and had him win it is shocking. Yeah, I'm going to go with Shinsuke, which I was also there for 2018.
But think about, and say it's shocking, and you couldn't believe they actually went through with it. How many times in the Rumble history where there's a guy where you're like, come down to like the final two or final three, and you're like, shit, he might actually win this. Like, where you thought there's no way they're going to go with this. Right. And it almost happens, but in the end, they just don't pull the trigger.
It's a classic. Well, I remember speaking of when Del Rio won,
please.
Santino came out from nowhere. And I remember thinking, I can't believe that they had me believing, holy shit, Santino's going to win the fucking Royal Rumble. Like they had me. Because at first I was like, no, there's no way. And then I'm like, could it, and obviously, like you said, then no, it doesn't happen. But they had me though for a little bit. Can you imagine if maybe it would have been better off than Alberto Del Rio.
Hey, sometimes you got to go with you just go with it. You see what happens. Go from there. You don't know what can happen.
No, you don't. I mean, listen. So I was upset when Sheamus won. I mean, he did go on to Mania and have the infamous 18-second match with Daniel Bryan, where he big booted him and he won the title. And that's really where the yes chants really started, because the crowd, the internet started to really get behind Daniel Bryan because they were pissed that he lost the title in 18 seconds at Mania to Sheamus. which you could see. I don't know if I got the plaque there right there of Sheamus winning it. That was my first WrestleMania that I traveled for. And I remember being like, whoa, because that was the first match of the night. That was a crazy.
Yeah, it happened just like that.
Yeah. It's like I was pissed that Brian lost it, but I was also like, well, that's a hell of a way to start the show, you know? So
that's when I came back into wrestling. You know, I stopped watching for like pretty much the aggression era.
Yeah, that's when a lot of people got out. Like after the purchase of WCW and all that, the invasion angle, that's when most people left.
And then what happened was it's Monday night football's, you're just switching through, and I said, let's see what's going on, because I always kind of kept an eye on it just to see what was going on. And then remember, I saw that redheaded guy, pale white. I'm like, who the hell? This is the champion. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? It's like one of those where it's not like an attractive. Didn't look like that guy.
Right. Yeah, he's certainly got an interesting look. Yeah, for sure.
Big time.
Yeah. So we'll go a little more old school now. We've been talking a little more recent. And you had mentioned Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Big John Studd. And obviously Hacksaw was the winner of the inaugural Royal Rumble. Do you think that if WWE knew what the Royal Rumble would become today, that they would have had Hacksaw win that inaugural one?
No, absolutely not.
No,
you would have had one of the big guys win it, like the big name guys.
You can never take that away from him, though. He'll always be the winner of the first ever Royal Rumble.
And you could ask my brother, Mr. True Exact. Like we had like 1989's Royal Rumble on VHS, and that was the one where Axe and Smash started 1 and 2. Right. And that was like a huge deal because you never saw like a tag team fighting each other back then. And we watched that tape all the time. The time. $1 Million Man was he bought the number 30 from somebody. So he could come in last. So like it was, that was that golden era of the WWF then. That was just, when you're a kid, that's what gets you hooked. There's always like that one thing that gets you hooked.
Those old Rumbles, I mean, I love going. Like I said, unfortunately, I wasn't a fan during that era, but I've gone back. I've seen them all and some multiple times. And I love those old school Royal Rumbles or any of those pay-per-views. They just had a different feel to them. And I wish I was a fan during that era.
The only difference now, like nowadays, all the matches are kind of star powered. There's at least one star in each match, where back then there was a lot of, like, if you go back, even WrestleMania 6 with Hogan and the Warrior, that card was terrible.
Yeah. They were a lot of one-match shows. Yeah, they weren't like super cards like they are today, where like the card is stacked. Like every match is. I think, over time, the name and the allure of the event has gotten so big that you, at a necessity, you have to have a stack show, because if you put on a card from say 1990 in today's world, it looks lackluster. It looks like shit. You know what I mean? I mean, WWE could book a massive card today and people will still complain about it, right?
So it's like just hate everything.
Yeah, right. Because if you even go back a little over 20 years ago, like my favorite WrestleMania for years was WrestleMania 15, because it was the first WrestleMania that I was a fan for, right? And I thought it was the greatest show ever for years. And then I go back and watch it now, and like it still has that sentimental value. But like I watch it, and it's like that like comfort food, when I watch it. But it really is, besides Rock and Austin, it's really not a great WrestleMania at all. I mean, there's really not one other great match on there.
But like first WrestleMania I ever watched, I went to, it was WrestleMania 5.
Oh, you went to 5 in Atlantic City?
Yeah, and the only thing people wanted to see was Hogan Macho Man, because that story buildup was great. And I can't tell you who else was on the card. Yeah,
no, I can't either. And the other thing too back then is all the other matches, like the undercard, was so short. Yeah, like the matches were short, like 5 minutes. Boom, boom. If WWE did that today on the undercard, I mean, yes, once in a while you will have a short match, just either out of necessity, storyline, whatever. But if a match, has build up to it and they go out and have a 5-minute match, people will be pissed. You know, you can't do what you could do back then, you know?
The last like 5-minute match I can remember recently that people were actually going nuts and shocked at was when Goldberg beat Lesnar in Toronto.
Yeah.
And my cousin was up. He was there.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. That's cool.
So, because they live up there. And I remember him texting me, I'm going to, I think it was Survivor Series, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, I go, yeah, Lesnar's going to win. And then, like, I remember watching it and I was just texting him. I'm like, you kidding me? Like, he goes, the place was going nuts. Like, and that was what, 4 minutes, if that?
Like, like 2 minutes. I think it was like 2 minutes or something. It was really short. Yeah. So like, there are exceptions to the rule. And then, like, they had their match at WrestleMania at 33, like a few months later.
Yep.
And that match wasn't long. That was probably about 5 to 7 minutes. It felt longer because the other match was so short, but that was like the perfect time because like guys like that, especially Goldberg, you know, too long is not good at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it's a fine balance. So like sometimes shorter is better, you know, but it depends on the match, depends on the guys and the show. It a lot, you know. But yeah, it's just funny how we endear ourselves to these older shows that sometimes they just don't hold up, but we just love them because it's nostalgia. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why most of the fans nowadays don't like the current product is because it's the same with any band. Like I always go back to this example. Any band you like for instance, I'm a Korn guy. Korn's my favorite band. I got tattoos of their albums, right?
Wow. Right.
Their first album is always the best. So you always go back to it. And that's the same, all diehard Metallica fans always go back to the first album. They don't like the new one because it doesn't sound like the old one. It's the same with wrestling fans.
Yeah.
They don't like so-and-so because they're used to Stone Cold coming out and going off. The problem is you have to evolve. If you look at wrestling throughout generations, there's a reason each era is called a different era.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it evolves. You got to get used to it, but you're just never going to please everybody. And it's tough nowadays. Forget it, because we didn't have the internet back in the 90s or the Attitude Era where you could see spoilers. And that's going back to the Royal Rumble. That's what was fun about watching it, was to see who the surprise entrants were.
Yeah.
And now you just don't have it because you're reading it on Wrestle Inc. or Lords of Pain or any of the other wrestling sites. So you're just waiting for them to come out or see if they're wrong, and then you blast them on the message board.
Yeah, right. I know that's one thing I hate the internet about, and you know, it's like a drug. I can't help myself but read it, and I don't want to be spoiled. You know, I don't want to know, but I can't help but look. You know,
you have to.
Yeah,
don't touch the burning stove. You know,
I know. It's almost like I was like, I'm gonna log out of my Twitter for the next 48 hours. It's probably not going to happen, but I've already read spoilers for this year that are nothing crazy, but there's also spoilers that WWE purposely put out there. There's been rumors, but they've been getting a little more than rumors now about Ronda Rousey being in this year's Women's Rumble, which we'll get to a little later. But that isn't so much of a shit, I wish I didn't read it. It's now it's the worst kept secret kind of thing, Yeah. But yeah, it's inevitable. It's very rare that you can get away with not having that today. The one that really comes to mind, which is probably one of my favorite Rumble moments. Like I said, Cena coming out in 2008, but the other one was Edge returning in 2020, 2 years ago, after 9 years out. That didn't get leaked. Now, there was rumors going into that Edge was in Pittsburgh, which is where the WWE medical doctor is, whatever that clears them, a month or so prior, a few weeks, whatever it was. And so there had been some rumblings, no pun intended, but nothing concrete like Edge is going to be in the Rumble this Sunday. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't anything where we kind of knew, and he came out and that was insanity. But so once in a while, it
get
happens,
that surprise.
It's rare today,
Yeah.
I think there's that allure back in the day. You really didn't know what was going to happen. There was such a level of uncertainty, which I think is hard. it's just hard to pull off, today. I think the Rumble is probably the most successful pay-per-view at a lot of like questions in the air and a lot of like speculation. Right, getting people talking. Like I think, like besides of the who's going to win the Rumble thing, but like who's going to be in it, and is he coming back? I heard this guy's coming back. So, and now with the women's Rumble, now that's 2 Rumbles that you have all these rumors, swirling and questions in the air. So it's a fun pay-per-view. It's a lot of people's favorite pay-per-view.
It's mine.
Yeah, most people say that. I mean, WrestleMania is what it is. It's WrestleMania, right? But like SummerSlam is considered by the company the second biggest. And while I understand that and can agree, I think the Rumble though is the second best one of the entire
because it also ties into WrestleMania in a way too. It's like they're married together.
Yeah, right. It's the road to WrestleMania, right? As they tell you every year.
They gotta point at the sign.
Oh, the old. It's funny how now that's become such a thing, right? In the beginning, it was cool, and now it's just become like a parody.
You have to do it.
Yeah, you have to. You have to.
It's everybody waits for it though. That's the funniest thing now. Yep.
I love seeing the sign and then knowing that here comes the point, and sometimes that sign alone has made matches. You go back like 10 years ago, it was Taker and Triple H just stared down at each other, both looked at the sign, looked at each other, and
didn't even have to say a word.
It was on. It's kind of cool. There are certain situations. They did it with Undertaker and Brock too, where they both looked at it. So there's been times where the sign has really, been a big part of the show, which is kind of funny. And the Rumble is usually is the first time we see the sign. Yeah, so we should see it this Saturday. And there will be pointing. I can guarantee it.
Yeah, the question is who?
Who, right? Who's going to be point? As the New Day would say, who?
I was just going to do that.
Oh God. So we're going to start talking about this year's Rumble. We'll go over the card, but one thing I want to ask you, going back to old school Rumble, because I know you love the old school stuff. Were you a fan during the 1994 Royal Rumble? And what were your thoughts, if you were, what were your thoughts about the finish with Brett and Luger both winning and not one singular Rumble winner?
The first thought on that, and I remember we used to go to my aunt's house, who would get all the pay-per-views and watch them with her. And like I'd drive friends, like there'd be a ton of us. And the one thing I remember about 94 was the Undertaker getting resurrected, which as a 12-year-old kid, you didn't know what the hell was going on. And then the Rumble ending, you thought they screwed up. You thought somebody screwed up like Cena and Batista did.
I was going to get to that. I was going to say, because I thought, not to cut you up, but I thought when they did it in 05, at first I thought, they're doing a playoff of 94. But no, that wasn't supposed to happen. In 94 it was, not in 2005. But anyway.
Yeah, and then you didn't have the, I guess, like the capability to tell. See, it was different following a story back then too, because you had superstars. Raw just kind of started going, so you didn't really catch on yet. So like following that whole storyline, it was interesting because it's never been done before. And then the only thing I would have did differently instead of the world's worst coin toss was have them wrestle each other on like a Raw or something. Get the viewers' eyes on it, get more people on it, and then the winner gets to wrestle last.
Right.
It wasn't Luger's time. I think they went with the right guy to win the title, but then SummerSlam down the road, they should have went with Luger there. But that's a whole nother story. But it was the first reaction was you thought you didn't understand what happened. You thought somebody messed up, and especially as a kid. All I remember about that Rumble was the casket match, though. That's what's funny.
Yeah. The Taker and Yoko casket, that's iconic. And then they would do a return of that at Survivor Series.
Yeah.
Later that year. But yeah, that's a memorable moment. I remember that before I saw where that was from. I remember when I first started watching, and I saw the shot of him going. I remember being like, "Well, what is that? That's crazy. That's kind of cool. What is that?" I had no idea at the time that was from Rumble 94, and then I would go on to find it because Taker's my favorite wrestler of all time. So one more thing before we talk about this year. Speaking of Taker, he finally won it in 2007. First one from the number 30 spot. Everybody says number 30 is the best, but before Taker won, number one won more than 30. Shawn iconically won it in 95 with the both feet must touch the floor thing with Bulldog. And then Benoit, which will never be talked about again, won it as number one in 04. So Taker was the first one in 07 to finally win it from number 30. But what I'm getting to
Cena won it. Cena won it the next year. Yes, number 32.
Right. We went from 30 to 2 years in a row. 30.
And they used to make a big deal back in the day you got to be number 30. It's your best odds. Your best odds.
Yep.
What did it take? 20 something years.
I know. And then sometimes they used to have matches like they would make it part of the storyline, like to see who would get into the number 30 spot, which I like that. Because like it puts the importance on being number 30, but I also like the unpredictability of like not knowing who's going to come out last.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's a catch-22. But yeah, that 07 Rumble, I think I talked about like my favorite Rumble match being 02, but I think as far as finish and not necessarily finish because Taker won, which
but they had a match.
But that Taker Shawn, right? I mean, it literally was a match within a match.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
It's amazing. Yeah. A precursor of what they would do a couple years later, finally at WrestleMania. But I mean, we knew they had great matches. They had obviously years prior, they had the Hell in a Cell and a couple other matches. But like at that stage in their careers to go out and do that is probably the best finish to a Rumble. Yeah. In history, as far as like, match quality stuff and drama. 07, which is 15 years ago, another crazy thing. Crazy. I'm like, oh my god. Taker is my favorite. He hasn't won it since, and I don't think he's going to win it ever again, unfortunately. But
at least you have a favorite.
Do you have a favorite?
I don't really know. I like trying to think. I was just thinking about that as you were talking about it. I'm like, I don't know. I do love that Danhausen guy now.
He's entertaining. What's funny?
He's so creative and hilarious. He's creative.
Yeah,
like it's amazing.
What happened? I didn't really because I don't. I mean,
me neither.
I see things online
recently,
but like what happened is he did a couple interviews that I just happened to like watch on YouTube, and he did them in full gimmick.
Yeah,
and I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Like this guy is insane. Like he's really talented. Like, and I was entertained by him.
Yeah, that. If I had to pick one though, it probably would be Stone Cold.
Yeah.
Only because that was the peak of my childhood.
Right. Oh yeah. No, same here. I mean, Austin.
And I always say, think about how lucky we are, right? Yeah. You went from like, you had Andre, you had Hogan, you had Brett, you had Shawn. We got to see two at the same time with Rock and Austin.
Yeah.
Like before it was really just one.
Right. And it hasn't been like that since.
No, Cena was the last, I guess, major face.
Yep.
If you want to say face, because Roman's getting up there, but
he's getting there. Since the career change a couple years ago, he's getting there. Yes.
The problem with there's not another guy near him.
Right.
That's the difference. Whereas like when Cena always had like Orton, Batista, like there was another guy that was right at that level. Hogan had the same thing, and then Stone Cold always had The Rock.
Yep.
And The Rock, he had Angle. There was other people.
Right. There was a lot. Yeah. You need people to feed. You need to feed the beast. And you need to give. He needs to have people to beat in order to be at that level. Guy. And yeah, it's skim pickings, unfortunately. So I hope that changes. I hope some guys step up and become contenders. Well, I guess there's a good transition, a good way to come up to this year. He's defending the title against his former Shield brother in Seth Rollins, or I'm sorry, we're supposed to call him Seth Rollins. I think that's like his trademark name now. So, which I'm a huge Seth Rollins fan. I'm really enjoying the stuff he's doing with the drip, the whole deal. He's really talented. I mean, whether
you're entertained.
He's very entertaining, and every incarnation of him has been good. From, I mean, obviously his days in the Shield, and then when he was part of the Authority, and then he, was, then he was Seth freaking Rollins, and he was fighting, Triple H and going, then Brock and going for the title and all that, and then did the Messiah stuff, and now all the way to the drip gimmick. Every facet of him, he's been successful at. He's really
he's almost like this generation's Chris Jericho.
Yes,
Jericho always found a different way to reinvent himself, and that's why I think he's one of the greatest.
Yep. I agree. Jericho. I mean, yeah, he always found a way to, even if it was the slightest thing. Yep.
And like Rollins is probably the best aside from Styles wrestler in the WWE.
Yeah, I agree.
And the other part of the equation is, I don't care how good of a wrestler you are, entertain me. Like, I want to be entertained, and he does that phenomenal. So
I agree. I think it's important to be a great wrestler or a good wrestler. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
Put on good match. You don't want, sorry to say, but the great Khali, right? You don't want guys that are fucking terrible, but they don't need to be, all 5-star, classic wrestlers. But I want to be entertained.
Yeah.
I could see a 5-star match on an independent show, but I'm not going to get, quality entertainment on like I am in the WWE or something like that. So, and Seth is one of those guys that no matter what he's doing, he entertains you.
Yeah.
With that being said, as entertaining as Seth is, and as great of a wrestler as he is, and as big of a superstar as he is he big enough to beat Roman Reigns, who's been champion? Well, now I lost count. I know as of last Friday it was 508, so I guess by tomorrow it'll be 515 days. Our reigning, defending Universal Heavyweight Champion of the world. Can he do it? Can he beat Roman Reigns' title reign at the Rumble Saturday?
I don't think so, because if it does happen, what is it actually like? How much more does it really elevate Rollins? Is one thing, and I just think the guy that is going to beat Reigns is going to be, I mean, it's got to be somebody that's like up
big
there.
Yeah. No,
I mean, they're still waiting for that main event with The Rock.
Oh, yeah.
They're holding out hope.
I hope that match happens. I mean, originally, the rumor was last year when it was going to be in LA.
Yep.
And then obviously that all changed. And then people thought this year, because, Dallas is huge, right? The stadium, 100,000 people. And that doesn't seem like that's happening now. So now the last resort is next year when they are in Hollywood. But I don't know, because he's got, every day you read a press release of he signed on for this movie. And God bless him. I mean, he's been killing it in Hollywood now for like 20 years. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
it's like you get to a point. I mean, yeah, he's in great shape. He's in better shape than I'll ever even imagine being in. But he's not getting any younger. I mean, he's going to be 50 like within the next year or two. So like that doesn't, okay, he could still go and put on a great match, but like 1 year, is another year, it keeps before you know it. So yeah, it's like if it doesn't happen within these next couple of years, I don't know if it's going to happen. And that obviously, besides Roman and Brock, which I know they've done before, but that besides that, Rock and Roman is really it as far as major blockbuster matches. But except there is also, which we're getting Saturday, finally, Brock and Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
That's another dream match that I'm surprised that they're doing at the Royal Rumble. I would have expected they would have saved that for WrestleMania, whether it be this year or even a SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Because the title matches at the Rumble, sometimes they put on odd title matches because they can afford to. Because the Rumble is the draw, but not this year. Both title matches this year are blockbuster between Roman and Seth and Bobby and Brock.
And that's what makes me think there's something big either planned for the actual Rumbles, or I'll get back to that when we make our predictions on what I think is going to happen.
You know, they could do it one of two ways. You could either have somehow Brock beats Bobby, or somehow Roman beats Rollins, and they both retain their titles, right? You could do that. They both retain their titles, and at WrestleMania, you do title versus title, right? Like which was rumored, you know, and they kind of alluded to. That's where I think they're going. I think Brock and Roman are both keeping their belts on Saturday and going to WrestleMania. But they could also not want to do that and have two different title matches, you know, keep it separate. So still do Brock and Reigns, but now that leads to the question, okay, which champion, because one of them's got to lose. So who does lose? Is it Brock or is it Roman? Somebody's got to, if they're not going to do title for title, somebody's got to lose on Saturday, right?
Yeah, unless if I had
that's a hard, I mean, either way, you put yourself in a corner. You know what I mean? It you know, unless there's interference.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, that's the thing. Like, I think what'll happen is if one of them does lose, I think it'll be Lesnar.
Right.
And then what'll happen is Lesnar will enter the Rumble, win the Rumble, go on to challenge Reigns. And if it happens vice versa, like if Reigns loses, that's what he'll do. It's a weird thing with ever since Brock won the title at day one, it kind of threw everything for a loop where this is like the most unpredictable Rumble.
You know, it's almost like Roman, I hate to say it, but Roman getting COVID, like it really made everything more, you know, I don't want to say more entertaining. That's not the word I'm looking for, but just more like uncertainty. You know what I mean? It really kind of enhanced the road to WrestleMania in a way because, you know, I feel like if it was Roman and Brock at day one, which I wonder what they would have done with that finish, you know, alone at day one in that match. Yeah. But like, I think we would have had a more clear direction of where we're going for Mania.
Well, the other thing that is, the Berserker,
he never won a Rumble.
No, he was terrible. The other thing that, like, with the whatchamacallit you brought up just before, say they are going that route, both of them win, and they want that unification at WrestleMania. Right. Then what do you do with the Rumble winner?
Right.
Like, what happens to who wins the Rumble? Like, that's a triple threat.
That's a very good point. You know, the triple threat. The triple threat thing. I
hate triple threats.
It's, you know, it's
tough to pull off.
It's worked, but it's like at WrestleMania
twice.
What happened?
It's worked twice.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 20 and 30.
I was going to say, yeah. My favorite one, I mean, it was my first WrestleMania, but I mean, I think that triple threat is like the best triple threat in history. I also do love, speaking of Rumbles, 2015, John Cena, Seth Rollins, and Brock Lesnar is right up there. But yeah, triple threat. I mean, the one last year was good with Edge and Roman and Bryan. I think they did that though, basically, so that Roman could beat both Edge and Bryan, you know, together. Whatever that he was saying, you know, smash them, stack them, pin them, you know, the whole thing. Yeah. Which was kind of badass that he pinned both of them. That was kind of
never saw that before.
No, never.
That was something different.
But yeah, I mean, I prefer a one-on-one match unless like the triple threat is like really strong. So like, I think we're better off with Brock Roman one-on-one if they're going to do Brock and Roman. I mean, maybe if Drew was really hot, you know, and like you could, like, he should be in that picture. Like they could do a triple threat with Brock, Drew, and Roman, but I don't think Drew's there right now.
It's all about timing. I don't think anybody's there, and I think that's one of the biggest problems. You don't have There's too far of a gap between those two,
and that's the thing. Roman needs somebody. I mean, yes, Seth is a viable opponent for Roman, especially for the Rumble. But like WrestleMania, you need somebody that is on his level. And the only person, unless somebody does come back, like
Fiend.
The Rock, or I'm going to throw it out there, Stone Cold Steve Austin, because they're in Texas, even though I know it's never going to happen. Is Brock. I mean, there's nobody else that's WrestleMania worthy quality to face Roman Reigns this year. I'm sorry,
now,
this isn't.
As far as a surprise entrant that would be up there and win it, like, do you think maybe, like, we've seen it before? Does the Fiend make a comeback at number 30?
That would be
around there, like that stature,
because they never did it, and they teased Roman and Bray like right after Roman won the title, because Roman won it from Strowman because Strowman beat him the week before, whatever. But right before then, they drafted Bray to Raw, and the match never happened. But they like kind of teased it because Alexa did something with Roman, and then never happened, and then he got released. So that would be huge, and that would be WrestleMania main event worthy. The Fiend versus Roman Reigns. Stranger things have happened,
and I also find it odd he hasn't showed up anywhere either.
No, I thought for sure he would have been in AEW by now, or somewhere.
Somewhere. He's been quiet, and maybe this is part of the whole thing. We don't know.
Yeah,
they do some weirder shit.
Look, I mean, ever seen. Not to compare the Fiend to Mickie James, but Mickie James is going to be in the Royal Rumble, and she's the current Impact Women's Champion or Knockout Champion. So never say never.
Don't be shocked you see Moose or
that would be cool. That would be cool.
Because they've been floating that. I wouldn't be shocked either. You're gonna think I'm nuts, but you may see like Chris Jericho as well. They've been throwing these ideas around where that forbidden door is starting to creak open a little. So I wouldn't be shocked at anything now. No,
I wouldn't. A lot of people, Jericho. I mean, Jericho did awesome podcast last year, which was insanity, just on a podcast,
Yep.
But a lot of people were saying like Jon Moxley because Seth mentioned him on SmackDown, and then they even mentioned him on commentary like later on. So it wasn't like they just said it once and that was it. But I don't know. I mean, hey, again, you never say never.
You have to do something big this year. You really do.
I agree. I think
they're going to go that route.
Some big surprises. So you said obviously we both agree Roman's keeping the belt.
Roman's going to keep the belt. Brock's going to keep the belt.
And you think Brock's keeping the belt? Okay, I definitely agree on Roman. It's not that I don't agree on Brock. I don't necessarily think Bobby is beating Brock, but like you said, if Brock and Roman both keep the belts, then what does that do for the Rumble winner, right?
Yeah.
So I can see one of them losing, doing the Rumble thing, the surprise, like, holy shit, he's in the Rumble and he wins. Yeah. And if I see somebody doing that, I see Brock doing it more than I see Roman.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I can see somehow somebody costing Brock, even if it's the Usos. Even if it's not Roman that cost him, but like the Usos cost him. Now, not only have you had Brock lose without looking like shit, right? But you've now also furthered the storyline because now Brock's fucking pissed because now your cousins cost me the title.
What about Heyman?
Or they could do Heyman. They could have Heyman screw him and then realign. Because I was going to take my prediction, not a spoiler.
I was waiting for it.
Was that this is all going to lead to Mania, and during the match at Mania, Heyman screws Brock and realigns with Reigns. But he could do it at the Rumble and go into Mania back with Roman. They could do it that way too. So yeah, so I agree. I think Brock's losing, but not because Bobby just beat him. Not that he can't, because Bobby is a viable schmoz fan. I love the word schmoz. You know where I got that? The Bret Hart documentary. He said we could do a schmoz finish. I never heard of the word in my life.
Me neither.
Is that where you got it from back then?
It's the only time I ever heard it.
Wrestling with Shadows. Shout out to Wrestling with Shadows, one of the best wrestling docs out there. Yep. And then Brock goes into the Rumble because I think Brock was supposed to win the Rumble to begin with, in my personal opinion. My picks for the Rumble 2 months ago, a month ago, whatever, was Brock and Sasha. And Sasha's out. That doesn't mean she won't be in it on Saturday, but
you're kind of screwed. You're screwed now.
Yeah, right. I think Brock can totally do what you said and like go into the Rumble, win it. Now that's your Rumble winner, and he's going on to face. And then you have Bobby with the title on Raw, and then he faces whoever. They could do, I don't know, Big E or, whatever, somebody, Seth again, So I think that could be something they do, and it would further the storyline for WrestleMania. Yeah. Now, before we get to the Rumble matches, we also have Edge and Beth Phoenix, husband and wife, versus Miz and Maurice, husband and wife. The Grit couple versus the It couple. Now, I got to say,
you know where that one's going.
What'd you say?
The Miz is not winning that match.
I was going to say, do we really need to debate who's winning this one? I think we know it's the Grit couple, no doubt about it. Should be a fun match. I've enjoyed the storyline. It's entertaining. Edge and Miz was the match I never knew I really wanted to see until they kind of did it.
Yeah.
I never said, Edge and Miz, but it's been good.
It's been really good. Miz is entertaining. He's actually one of the guys that worked and fought for everything he's ever gotten. I'll give him credit.
Yeah.
I remember watching him on The Real World.
Yeah. Yep. And when he came in, he was like a doofus, but
reading the phone number off his wrist.
Yeah.
It was
classic. But yeah, I mean, like we were saying about Seth, how he's, everything he's done, he's, done well with it. And I think you got to say the same about Miz, no matter what position he's in, whether he's in the main event or he's in the opening match, whether he's the WWE champion, the Intercontinental champion, or whatever he is.
Yep.
He's always good. He's always consistent, and he always delivers. So I hope he gets a decent Mania spot. But I think we're gonna say safely Edge and Beth Phoenix. Then we got Doudrop and Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship. I think
we both have an idea of where we're gonna guess the women's is gonna go if the rumors are true.
So that gets me to my lead in here. Becky Lynch defeats Doudrop. But who does she face at WrestleMania? Well, who will win the Women's Royal Rumble? And if you've been anywhere near a computer, a telephone, or a tablet and been on a wrestling site within the last 48 hours, you'll have read that there are rumors swirling that Ronda Rousey may be in this year's Women's Royal Rumble. If that is the case, is Ronda the odds?
Makes 100% makes sense too.
Yeah. Because
she never technically pinned her.
She never pinned her. And that one-on-one match never happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was supposed to happen at Survivor Series. Becky got hurt. Then it was supposed to finally happen at WrestleMania, and they turned it into a triple threat, which I understood why. They had Charlotte take the pin, and, she was another big name that they wanted to have her part of the first women's main event.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't against them doing the triple threat, but we never got that Becky Ronda one-on-one, and I thought at the time they were going to do it the next year at 36, which thank God they didn't, because that became a disaster, right? But
you forget all about that.
I don't even want to talk. I historically had a meltdown when we found out about it, like 2 weeks
I can
out.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. Let's just say I was drinking Broken Skull IPAs very heavily.
It was tough.
I was so mad because I was going.
Yeah, it was tough to watch too.
Oh God, it was. You talk about just
those PC days were tough to watch.
Terrible.
It was tough to watch.
It was bad when the Thunderdome was like, "This is fucking amazing."
Yeah.
And now you go back and watch that, and it's like, this is kind of shitty. But at the time, it was like, "Oh, this is fantastic." Like even when they added like the wrestlers to the crowd, that was like,
it was something.
I was like, "Oh, this is pretty good." It's like we were happy with whatever, but you look back at those original shows, but nothing.
It was bad.
It's like that's as bad as it can get.
Yeah,
it's as bad as it can get. But I was thankful at least they did the Boneyard, they did the Funhouse, Firefly Funhouse match.
Still the weirdest thing I've ever watched in my life.
I don't know what I watched it back and I was like, I don't know what that really was. But
I watched it a couple times and I don't know what the hell it was.
It was like I've never done acid, but I can imagine if you've done it that's what it's going to be like.
It's exactly how I described it to somebody after I saw it. I sat there for 10 minutes after I watched that and was trying to figure out what my mind just processed. Like it was the weirdest thing I've ever witnessed.
What the fuck was in beer?
I was entertained though.
Yeah, I mean, my eyes didn't blink. I'll tell you that much. I mean, I was, so they got the job done. And the Boneyard, I thought was
good.
Was really well done.
And you being an Undertaker fan, it also gives you hope he could do more stuff like that in the future.
I was giving out hope for that. I was like, well, he could do this.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see, right? Never say never.
Hey, he could be number 30.
He could be, and I will.
Yeah,
I will flip my shit. Let's just put it like that. But yeah, and so speaking of number 30, if you have Ronda come back, does it make sense for her to be number 30? Because not every crazy big return has been number 30. Like Edge was, I don't know, entrant 20 or 23. He was some weird number. There's been other guys that have come back and haven't necessarily been 30. Should she be 30?
Aside from Cena being 30 in 08, I don't like it because if you are holding out hope or think it's going to be that person and you don't see him yet, it kind of takes a little bit of the surprise away. If they're number 30. Yes. If you know what I mean.
Yep.
If it's like middle of the pack or 21, that's when you get the holy shit. If it's 30, you're like, this is him, this might be him. And then the reaction's not quite the same.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't do 30.
I could agree. And I'll give you a great example of that. Speaking of Edge returning, when he came back in 2010 from his Achilles injury. He was out for like 8 months or whatever. And he came back like they were at like 29. And you would have assumed if he was going to come back, it would have been 30. And he came out at 29.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, holy shit, because you weren't expecting a big name like that to be 29. You were all right, who's 29? Let's get 29 over. Then we get to 30. And then so I agree with that. Like if she's 24 or some shit, whatever, it'd be crazy because you're not expecting a big name at 24. At 30, you're expecting something big.
Yeah,
right?
you get those 15, 20 people where when they come out or you hear their music, we all have the same reaction. Go, oh, geez, they're not going to fucking win.
Yeah.
Why? Like, there's always those people. There's a good 5 people where you have a shot.
Right.
There's the 1 or 2 where you're like, definitely see them winning. And then there's those 3 that are like a Nakamura where they're like, maybe they will pull the trigger, but you'll have your NXT people. But I would do Ronda like 26, 25, somewhere in there.
I like that.
She's been gone for 2 years, so she's not going to be in act. She's got to build up that.
Right. She should be in there for a short period of time. She's not going to run the marathon. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I agree. So, all right. So are you going with Ronda? Is Ronda?
I'm going. Yeah, Ronda's my pick.
I'm gonna go with you on that too. I'm going with Ronda. But now, I hope she is there, and I think she will be. But if she's not, do you have another person that you can see winning that based on who we know is in there?
There's 2. Bayley, if she does come back.
I was going to say, yeah, she's an option.
But only recently because they started putting her back on TV as Alexa Bliss.
Yeah, that could be another option. So there are some options out there. Yeah. Hopefully it's Ronda, but I wouldn't be mad with either of those. Or if Sasha does somehow come back, even though she's not scheduled till March, but you never know, right? Now the men's, we kind of said like, okay, we think, Brock could be in it or whatever, but we don't know that. Based on what we do know, who do you see? I'm gonna give you a 2-parter here. Who do you see winning it? And which champion, or maybe not, which title do you think they'll go for? Because we don't know who will be champion at WrestleMania.
It's
a hard one.
Yeah, honestly, this is the first one, God, since I can remember where there's like no clear-cut winner. And the problem and that's because there's nobody near that level of Brock or Roman. So maybe that's why they would do the title first title, because there's nobody that can kind of match up. The other option would be, is this a moment where you can build somebody up and shoot them into superstardom like an Austin Theory? That
he's going to have a big showing, I think. I mean, I don't know about him winning, but he's going to have a good showing.
I mean, other than him, man,
I thought Vince was going to make him number 1 on Raw to like prove himself, but unless they could still do it like the day of the show, but
It's a tough year, man.
It is.
If I had to pick gun to my head, I'm dead because I have no idea.
All right, I'll let you off easy. Where are you going to go with Brock?
I'm going with Brock.
All right, going with
Roman.
Brock.
One of those two.
I think Brock is gonna be in the Rumble. Something's gonna happen. He's winning the Rumble. But if he's not, I'm gonna go with Big E because Big E never got his rematch 1-on-1 for the title that after he lost it. He was in the Fatal 5-Way, which was supposed to be a Fatal 4-Way. So I'm gonna go with Big E. And say Big E. I mean, he'd have to go for the Raw title, I think. I mean, they did Big E and Roman at Survivor Series, and I don't think we're not getting Brock and Roman at Mania. So I think whoever it is going for the the WWE title. But like you said, a lot of questions this year, which is what I love about the Rumble, is the unpredictability of it. Some years we kind of have a really clear idea, and it's still fun, but it's like, we kind of know where this is going, and it is what it is. But it's a lucky year. We have no idea what's going on. It's all rumor and innuendo, and we'll have to find out this Saturday live on, not pay-per-view anymore, but live on Peacock. And if you're listening to this outside of the country, which I highly doubt it, but if you are, hello and thank you.
Thank you.
You're watching on the WWE Network, which you're lucky for because Peacock is terrible. So,
and if you're in Indonesia, Disney Plus now, right?
Exactly. Yes. Good call on that one. So
love to see the amount of money they paid for that one.
Oh, I'm sure a hefty penny. I'm sure it didn't come cheap, And
hey, who the hell knows? Donald Duck could win the damn Rumble this year.
You never know. It's only a matter of time before we start seeing Disney character integration.
Yeah, Drew Carey could win it. Pete Rose. Drew
Carey was in the Rumble, then anybody could be in it. I remember one of my favorite lines is JR saying, I love JR. Well, it's a good thing he's wearing dark pants.
Yeah.
Yep.
I tell you, one person that will not win it is me. Even though I'm in front of that sign that Hogan used to talk to me and Gene. I'm not coming out.
Let me tell you some.
Get the bingo balls.
Yeah. Oh, I love the old lottery thing. That's one thing I wish they would be. They used to do it back in the day, and then they started like about 10, 15 years ago. They started doing it again, like in backstage segs where guys would pick numbers, and there was just a lot of funny moments. One time, Triple H, and then we never do this today, but Triple H took out the ball that the number was in and asked one of the divas to hold his ball for him. And she does it and he goes, that feels good. It's so funny. It's just so stupid, but funny. But I mean, that would never happen today. But like another one is Kelly. Somebody came in, I think it was Sandman came in, somebody took a couple of balls. They were only supposed to take one, threw them on the floor. Kelly goes to pick them up, and she does it with a smirk because she knew and she said, these are the biggest balls I've ever held. And then all of a sudden, this is when Ron Simmons was doing this like often. He came from the side, just looked at, did the old damn. And it was one of the best backstage segs ever. So I wouldn't mind. I know we're not going to get that kind of, material, but
I understand why they don't do it, but it's a shame because like certain stuff, do you think The Rock would be as big as he is nowadays?
No, so
just with his catchphrase.
I don't want to say no, but I will say I think The Rock would have been a star because The Rock is a star, and I think Stone Cold would have been a star because Stone Cold is a star. But they wouldn't have gotten over with what they got over with.
Yeah, the DX with that.
And DX, no way. I'd like to see how they would have gotten over in today's environment. I think they would, because I think the cream rises to the crop, and at the top.
They would have found a way.
They would have found a way. I'm interested to see how they would have found that way. Funny story, but before no better way to sign off than this. The Rock, I was 10 years old and I went to a show and my father took me and they were selling a Poontang Pie t-shirt and I wanted it and I had no idea what it meant. And my dad wouldn't let me get it and I got really pissed because I couldn't understand why my dad would not let me get the Poontang Pie shirt because I wanted that one. It was cool. It was a cool shirt. And years later, I understood why my father wouldn't let his 10-year-old son purchase a Poontang Pie shirt, let alone pay for it. So with that being said, The Rock certainly would have been able to use some of his catchphrases that he did.
And yet, when he told you no, or you just telling him to suck it.
And I probably did. I know I yeah.
Give him the Austin fingers.
You know what? They ruined a generation of children.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't know if they ruined it. Let's say they made them very educated.
Hey, look, it's like I always said. If you don't like it, turn the channel.
Exactly. The bullshit I had to fight through though, like with stuff that they did to like let my parents be okay with it, and now these kids have no worries at all. They
none.
They got none of it. You know, but we had some good times back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And the Rumble was a big part of that. And you could be a part of this year's Royal Rumble. Watch it, like I said, on Peacock Network, Disney Plus, wherever you are. There's a way to watch it. And if for some reason you want to pay $50 for it, you can watch it on pay-per-view, I believe, still. So go for it. But Ray, I want to thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure talking to you. I love talking shop. And when somebody is into it like I am, it's always a good time. I hope to have you back on here again. And for everybody else, thank you for watching Mark's Side of the Ring. I'm Fred DeCourt, and we'll see you next week after the Royal Rumble.